On today's Fun Friday episode, we're crossing over with Locked On Rockies to preview this weekend's series, talk about all the good stuff Padres and Rockies, whether or not the Padres will succumb to the pressure of facing a team that always tends to play well against them, talking about Luis Arraez as a potential free agent for the Rockies this offseason, and a whole lot more. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Padres podcast and Locked On Rockies podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Friday, September 5th. As always, I'm one of your hosts with sometimes the most, Javier Reyes, and I've been covering the team for almost 6 years now, not just for this podcast, but various other outlets, including justbaseball.com, chief among them. Today's episode, guys, is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for two to any golf tournament in the US of A, with the exception of the Masters tournament. Visit 5hewin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary, again, except for the Masters tournament. Any golf tournament in the USA ends October 31st, 2025. And I'm being joined by, on today's episode, my main man of Locked On Rockies, your main man, depending on what feed you're listening to. It's Paul Holden of Locked On Rockies. My man, how are you? How you doing today?
We're all right. Baseball wise, we're all right. Now, well, we're here, and it's not going to get any easier. I of course, I made the mistake, Javi. I sat there and I went in and said, "Oh, the Giants, they're out of it." And now the Giants have won 10 of 11, and they just swept the Rockies, and there was a benches clearing brawl, and the Rockies have 100 losses and all this stuff. And so, it's I don't know, because I get asked the interesting question, am I rooting for the historically bad season? Like, people are like, oh, you want that, right? You want that. And I'm like, no. Why? Like, I'm sorry, I have no interest in the team that I root for and talk about daily on a podcast being the worst baseball team of all time. I mean, it's like, why would I want that?
It's a good question. Me personally, I remember in 2023, I was actively rooting for the Padres to lose another extra innings game. I don't know if you remember this. They were horrific in 2023 and basically any time when it mattered, whether it be one-score games and especially extra innings. And if they had lost one later on in the year, there was the potential that not only would they break the record if they lost this game in extra innings, but it also would have kicked them out of the playoffs. So, like, a 2-for-1, I've said it on this podcast, I thought it would have been genuinely really funny. Didn't end up happening. They decided to win for once. But I get it, man, to each their own, because you do cover them every day. My team, not as ridiculous, which we're going to talk about, obviously, as we preview this series for sure. But, man, everybody, just send a hug, a virtual hug. Send them a little emoji, just anything. Every Padres listener, go on his channel. Everyone listening to the show, and just send a heart, a purple heart. I don't care which one it is. You know what I mean? Whatever it is, because it's tough out here. And for it to happen the year after we already had a team break the record for worst, right, with the Chicago White Sox, you'd think that we wouldn't have the second straight year of that. But the Rockies, this is a team that, every single thing that could have gone wrong seems to be going wrong. Chase Doolander, granted, he's a rookie, it's whatever, but he doesn't come up to inspire people. And then you're thinking, oh, you know what? At least we could be just go quietly tonight. Nope. We're going to have Kyle Freeland get upset at Rafael Devers over a home run. And then we're going to have a brawl, which a bench is like a genuine brawl, by the way. I think that they love putting it all caps, benches clearing. And half the time they just go up and
that was a real one, though.
That was a real one. That was a real one.
And I said this on the show, and I don't want to dive too much into this thing. It's like, because this actually would be a good lead into our pitching matchups here. It's just like, I love Kyle Freeland's energy. I love Kyle Freeland's passion. But I'm sorry, man, when you give up the home run, when you're a Rockies starter and you have underperformed and have the Rockies, they have 3 starters with over a 5 ERA. The Rockies have starters that have given up 20, 25. When play better, strike him out, get him out. Like, I'm sorry, was that looked at as like, wow, was it a pimped home run? Sure. but at the same time, do your job,
Mhm.
execute. And in the modern game, man, like if you're going to be offended by that type of stuff, you're not going to last long. It's weird to say about Kyle Freeland, but it's like, I'm sorry, man. Like it shouldn't, it is disrespectful, but in the realm of what happened, I'm not opposed to it. And so, you wanted to highlight the pitching matchups. The Padres are favored by a mile in every pitching matchup in this series. I mean, I believe actually Tanner Gordon, I think, is going to see the bump in this series, I think. And he's actually been really good for the Rockies of late. The Rockies have won, I believe, the last 5 games. He's won 4 or was on the verge of winning 4 starts in a row, like officially like getting a win to be the first Rockies rookie to do that since Kyle Freeland and German Marquez were rookies back in the day. So he's a bright spot here when it comes to the pitching staff. But, Antonio Senzatella is now in the bullpen for the Rockies, and he's making some big money. Kyle Freeland has struggled. I know we're not going to see Kyle in this series. German Marquez has not looked anywhere close to himself after returning from injury. So the Rockies have had to turn to young guys and turn to a bullpen with exciting arms, but have overused this bullpen. It is evident that the Rockies are feeling how much they've used their bullpen this year. And the numbers are just ugly across the board for the pitching staff.
And man, here's the thing. All that usually I'd be like music to my ears. This is great. This is great. We're catching them at an even worse time. You know what? Yeah, they struggle against them. We've talked about this many times as we've done crossovers, the Rockies' ability to just spoil the Padres. And yet I'm still terrified, man. You said you got swept. Well, so did we. One of those things is going to break this weekend, and I don't know which one it's going to be, because similar to what you just mentioned about taxing the bullpen, that's the Padres' issue right now. Since August 24th, if you exclude Nick Pivetta, the longest a starting pitcher has gone for the Padres is 4 1/3 innings from Dylan Cease. That is the longest. Nestor Cortez only went 2 2/3 the other day. Thank God we had a day off on Thursday. Otherwise, this series this weekend, it could be a little bit different. I'm just saying, also, you might have caught the Padres at a really bad time, because this is a team that is all of a sudden, I don't think we're at the point where we're scared of missing the playoffs, but we're definitely at the point where if you lose this series, you've got another one against Cincy coming up to start next week. Things get a little interesting, my friend. Very, very interesting. But we're going to talk about specifics when it comes to the pitching matchups. But first, I got to talk to you guys about a very special sponsor for today's episode, and that is our friends over at the Zippix. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, new sponsor. Do you need a power boost to get through the day without reaching for another cup of coffee or an energy drink? I don't know why I said it like that. That's where I come up with new sounds whenever I'm reading ad reads. I swear. That's where Zippix caffeine toothpicks come in. Instead of the crash you get from sugary drinks, Zippix gives you a clean, convenient burst of caffeine anytime, anywhere. And if you're looking for that nicotine satisfaction, they've got Zippix nicotine toothpicks as well. Really great. Really, really great. Me personally, I'm not a coffee guy. I'm not a nicotine guy. But guess what? These things are great. I've heard from many, many people that they are going to get the job done. So why don't you try them? Go to zippixtoothpicks.com and use promo code LOCKEDON for 10% off your first order. That's zippixtoothpicks.com and spelled Zippix, Zippix, toothpicks.com. Promo code LOCKEDON. Zippix Toothpicks, energy and focus anytime you need it. Go on and check it out. And just like that, everybody, we are back here on the Locked On Padres, Locked On Rockies crossover extravaganza. Paul and I talking all sort of stuff in the first segment. Let's get into the specifics of who we might see this weekend and what we can know about them, right? I just told you the general thing. Starting pitching, not great for the Padres, at least as of late, right? Obviously, a lot more talent in theory. Even Nestor Cortez should have more talent. Apparently, he didn't know how to go, 1 out, he gave up 3 home runs back to back. But even still, this is a Padres team that's still on paper. Obviously, breaking news, everybody, better than the Colorado Rockies, right? But in terms of what we've got right now, we don't have fully established pitching matchups for every game in the series. Fridays, though, it is looking like, at least I'm looking on Yahoo right now, and they say Nick Pivetta and Kyle Freeland. But then on the Padres site, they don't have anybody. Right. Yeah, so we don't know exactly for sure.
Right. Because I'm on ESPN as well looking at this. Kyle Freeland pitched 2 days ago. Kyle Freeland is not starting this game. I don't know what is happening here.
Did he get ejected from the game?
He did get ejected from the game after.
Maybe that's why. Inning. Maybe that's why.
I mean,
he basically didn't pitch. Right now that I think about it, right?
I guess It was the second at bat of the game. He threw less than 10 pitches. I guess certainly that there's no. I'll have to look. I mean, but that's
because usually teams are pretty specific about this. Like that, even if you haven't gone too many pitches or haven't gone too long, like we see it with rain delays a lot. If you go out and throw like 15 pitches,
like I've never heard a guy
it's a little bit weird.
Even suspend, like you mentioned, they have people leave games in the middle of the rain delays. There's no. I mean, if Kyle Freeland. If he actually is pitching, and I guess at this stage, if it's on multiple places, like, I don't know, but it isn't. We're recording this on the off day, by the way, so it's not like, there's no lineups or anything that have come out. There certainly things can change between recording this. If you're sending Kyle Freeland out there, while physically, yes, he, I'm sure he's fine because of the lack of pitching. That just talks to you about the lack of depth of the Rockies starters have in this situation when they can't turn to some of these younger guys that they've tried to turn to and go through there. But I'm just very thrown off by that. But you mentioned the issues here with the Padres and starting pitching. Let me just put the brakes a little bit here on
it's only over the last week. That's what it's been.
Bobby, the Rockies team ERA is 6.01. They have a whip of 1.61. They have walked 488 batters. This is actually the closest category the Padres and the Rockies are as a team. And remember, this is a team pitching staff, starters, bullpen. This is the whole. So the Rockies have walked 488 batters. The Padres have walked 464. So only a 24 difference there.
Yeah.
The Rockies have not struck out 1,000 batters yet this year. They have struck out 932 batters. It is September 4th while we're recording this. Their opponent's batting average against them is 299. I mean, it doesn't get much worse. I mean, it literally doesn't get much worse than this.
And it's funny.
You can't be much worse than this.
The next closest in terms of overall team ERA is the Nationals at 5.28. Just to give it like a full
That's nearly a whole point. I know that's like, I mean, I guess there's some wiggle room there, but you're talking about a team ERA of 6, and it's Coors Field. It's young guys. There's stuff to throw in there, but it's the thing that I was the most wrong about the 2025 Colorado Rockies was believing in the starters. I believed that Kyle Freeland, German Marquez, and Antonio Senzatella and Austin Gomber being healthy and returning to this lineup. They weren't going to be the best rotation in baseball, but they were going to be better than the rotations that the Rockies have been going with the past couple of years, dealing with the injuries to Senzatella and Marquez and other things where they've had to basically waiver wire grab guys and fill in guys with they had like 6 guys that basically kind of took like some rebound or at least their last gasp in the big leagues with the Rockies. And the big problem is they've committed Kyle Freeland is the second highest paid Rocky behind Chris Bryant. And I think Antonio Senzatella is right behind him at number 3 after he got his extension. German Marquez is going to be a free agent this offseason. And I've said it, even with his struggles, I don't think he's coming back to the Rockies.
I think he's cooked. I think it's over.
There's no way he's going back to the Rockies. Maybe a team can go, and rebuild him. But the Rockies pitching staff has been a nightmare. And I'm glad the Rockies have turned to some young guys. And I'm not really going to put too much stock into too many rookies, but I'm a little disappointed by Chase Dollander so far. It's just because we haven't seen enough of those moments where it's just like, yo, holy smokes, this is the guy that we were talking about. This is the guy we're hoping up. But he also came from a long season, and he's been pitching for the Rockies for a good point in the season. He didn't have a lot of time in the minor league, going from college time in the minors to majors. His timeline was a lot faster mixed with the tough environment. He's a much better pitcher on the road, obvious, that we've seen. So I'm not I'm not giving up on young Rockies arms right now, but I have zero confidence in this organization to turn these guys into something great, because we were supposed to believe that German and Antonio Senzatella and Kyle Freeland were supposed to be the cores, and Austin Gomber as well, who, by the way, isn't on the team. You remember that Nolan Arenado guy? There's no one on the Rockies from that trade anymore, and the Rockies are still paying Nolan Arenado. Just going to throw that out there real quick. But, we were told this was a team that was supposed to turn these guys into something, do something with these guys, and they haven't. And now we have to hope that they're going to do that with a young crop. I mean, how the Rockies haven't moved on from from their pitching coach when they've moved on from their hitting coach. They moved on from their manager, yet their pitching coach is still sitting there with the Rockies pitching staff being the worst in baseball again. It's insanity. It literally is insanity.
Have you ever seen that viral video of the White Sox ESPN fan who called into the studio and ranted for like 8 minutes long? I'm gonna send it to you because if we had longer, I'm convinced you would go through the whole thing, and maybe we'd get fired by the end of it, frankly, because like that, you have to look it up. I'm gonna send this to you right after. It's hilarious. This fan, and no cursing, nothing like really bad. He really just echoes it all, and the hosts don't have to say anything. I get it though, man. I get it. And I think that one of the things that's been happening with the Rockies is very like, when you think it can't get worse, it gets worse. They find a different way to do that. And I remember the Nolan Jones trade, right? Like, now Nolan Jones didn't turn out to be a superstar or anything, but it's still just that feeling of like, oh God, we already gave up on this guy. That's
Brett the best move they made this year, though.
This year. Yeah, that's the other thing is like, it didn't even turn out that horrible for them, but just that feeling of like, just a team that doesn't know exactly what it's doing. And while this series obviously is favored for the Padres, Nick Pivetta going against Kyle Freeland, right? Pivetta,
maybe,
the only guarantee. Yeah, we'll see. Allegedly, right? Nick Pivetta, Corey Yahoo, he's the one advantage they have. But I will tell you, after that, we don't know who the starters are for Saturday. And then for Sunday, it's Dylan Cease and Tanner Gordon. But let me tell you, in Coors, if Nick Pivetta, the key to this series, I think, Nick Pivetta's been good for a long time. If you're going to have a rough patch the same time as the whole Padres pitching staff has been collapsing, at Coors Field, worse has happened, right? Nick Pivetta has a sub-3 ERA this year. He's been one of the best pickups of the entire offseason for any team. But he's also a guy that was previously known before this year to be a big home run guy. Like, he'd get the strikeouts, he'd give innings, a good major league starter for sure. But, you know, in Coors Field, could something change? Now, this offense of the Rockies is very bad, I understand. And if that were to happen, we don't know who the starter is for Saturday for the Padres. And then Sunday, Dylan Cease has had one of the worst contract years pitching seasons I've literally ever seen. At least, especially for someone of his stature, a guy who finished like Cy Young 6 last year or something like that. So the series could get interesting, despite Paul's clear cynicism and justified. I don't even know if it's nihilism at this point. My guy is just like, I can't do this team.
And
he's
you
like,
tell me what it is for
Broncos, you know?
7 straight losing seasons, 3 straight 100 loss seasons. I mean, you tell me how you'd be feeling there. But I will say here to give the team credit, and it's kind of lost its luster over the last about 12 games, as the Rockies have really struggled. I think they're now 2-11, something like that, over this most recent 2-week stretch. The Rockies, to start this year, the second half of the year off, were a much better team and a much better team at home. So Coors Field has become a factor again. At least the Rockies come back in games late. Their offense has struggled, but it has also shown a lot of signs of life. Hunter Goodman is one of the better stories in baseball. A really successful catcher that's flying under the radar for the team he plays for. Made an all-star team, of course, and which is great. But Jordan Beck's been a nice addition. The Rockies are now tied with the Nationals to being the youngest team in baseball. They have gone full youth movement, and some of these guys are swinging some decent bats. Ezekiel Tovar, he's dealt with health issues this year, but now being healthy, making impacts there. So this is a team that when you're looking at in the second half of the season for the Rockies, they've won their most series here. They won back-to-back series to start the second half against Minnesota and St. Louis at home. They beat Pittsburgh at home in an absolute crazy thing, and that included a skiing start in that one as well. Toronto throttled them though. But the Rockies even took down the Diamondbacks in 3 out of 4. Split a series with the Dodgers at home. Yeah, and now they've really fallen off. This is just unfortunate. The Rockies follow up their great stretches of the year, and great is let's comparative term here, and then they just go on these this horrendous stretch where the Rockies now since since August 21st they've won 2 games. It's just like when that happens, you just go in these huge holes where it completely washes away the fact that you won 4 or 5 series at home in the second half of the season.
I gotta send you that clip. It's the first thing I'm doing when we finish recording. But folks, we're not done. We're going to talk a little bit about an optimistic side of things, and specifically Luis Arraez, which in my opinion would be beneficial for the Padres to move on and might be a fun free agent for the Rockies this offseason. But first, let me just tell you about our friends over at 5 Hour Energy, because it's time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-hour energy transfusion. That's right, everybody. This grape ginger lime flavored shot brings the iconic taste of a golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost, perfect for sinking birdies or making great memories with friends. It's a hole-in-one for your energy game. And whether you're out on the course or just need a little extra push to power through the day, 5-hour energy transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavors you love without ever leaving the green. It's great, guys. In golf, frankly, everything in life is all about good times with good people. And you need good flavors to go along with it. And the grape ginger lime flavor of 5-hour energy transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without leaving the course or chasing down, like a cartoon character, the beverage cart. Now you can amp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for 2 to any golf tournament, with the exception of the Masters and the US of A. Tee up that trip and visit 5HE.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament again and ends October 31st, 2025. Go and check that thing out. And just like that, everybody, thriving and vibing here. The final segment of today's Fun Friday, Locked On Padres, Locked On Rockies crossover spectacular. We've talked about the pitching matchups. We don't care about all these guys. We know that the Rockies are a mess. You know what I mean? But I want to talk to you about Luis Arraez. First of all, when I bring up the fact that Luis Arraez is a free agent, does he interest you, Paul? Just quick, your quick, immediate summary. Would you be interested in a Luis Arraez?
I'm interested in the Rocky. Like, I mean, do I like the fact of a guy that can hit the ball and get on base and would be an interesting thing there? Sure. But I feel like he would kind of fill the role that like Orlando Arcia is kind of playing, like a veteran guy like that you bring on Thairo Estrada before he got hurt to, you know, how does that move help you like get to the next step? If you're going to be as bad as the Rockies are, and probably will be next year, and honestly going forward, I'd rather keep seeing guys. You have to bring people in, and Arraez certainly would be a name that would get interest. And who knows? I mean, would be, you know, we know that it isn't launching the ball out of the yard, but being able to hit the ball in the gap at Coors Field, like that is something, you know, he could maybe hit a bunch of doubles, which could be a great little boost to kind of help those you know, power numbers, so to speak, for him. But I don't necessarily, it all, I guess, depends on like your contract, your commitment and everything. Because as I kind of mentioned right now, the Rockies have been tearing things that, you know, in terms of contract wise and stuff. You trade Ryan McMahon, you're going to have German Marquez come off the books here. You're dealing with the albatross of the Chris. You have a couple albatross contracts right now Chris Bryant, the highest paid Rocky is Chris Bryant.
We haven't talked about him. I didn't want to bring him up. I thought that would be mean.
To talk about. He hasn't done anything.
I thought it would be mean.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. So it's like, okay, if Luis Arraez comes and plays for a year and it's a simple deal and he sees some success and it's cool and the people like him in the locker room and hits a couple of walk-off guy things in the gap or something like that, great. Sure, he will bring a more veteran presence and a guy that doesn't, you know, might not strike. The Rockies have a horrendous strikeout problem. They can't stop striking it. They strike out a ton. So, you know, a guy that can consistently get on base that way, sure. But if I'm the Rockies, you have, since they haven't fully committed to this rebuild stuff, like I just don't know I think if your Rockies are going to do stuff in free agency, I think you have to be like when the Padres were, when the Rockies need to be. They need to change the whole narrative about them. And how did the Padres do that a few years ago when they was like, why are all these players going to the Padres right now?
Yeah.
Like, why are all these players all of the sudden, the Padres, who have been, you know, and not even close to where the Rockies are at right now, but middle of the, you know,
I think even lower. I mean, at least the Rockies had moments.
Right.
I think the Padres were a joke for a long time. The only thing that people knew about the Padres of this last like 20 years is the Matt Holliday play. Frankly,
right, exactly.
Is basically, and then obviously Trevor Hoffman was a great player. I get it, but
and a couple of, but
yeah,
the Padres changed everything about them because they said, okay, we're gonna go like we're in a spot here where this ain't working. We don't think it's gonna pan off in the, you know, we got to go and get guys, and I think that's one solution for the Rockies. But I think this team has so much crap behind the scenes that they have to deal with. Troubles, what, you know, ownership that's getting involved. They're moving on from some people, but he's promoting his son, and it's just like they have so much stuff behind the scenes. They need to invest in analytics. They need to invest, all while they're saying though, we can't spend money because we're not able to do these things. The Rockies are easily one of the teams most impacted by the regional sports networks going down. You know what I mean? When they lost their deal there, it was huge for them. And they got the sponsorship patch. So they're in a situation where they're going to have to just start figuring out what's going on with like just they're fighting. I think there's so much more behind the scenes with the Rockies that I don't know what they're going to be able to do in free agency, because they're just at a mess. They got solid prospects and some stuff in the system, but it's just like, I don't think they're on a path to competitive baseball anytime soon. So they might still just be sellers. They might still be at a spot where you don't a low free agency and you try to sell off at the deadline again.
Well, this will annoy some of the cultists that follow this show, mine. But I think if you're not trying to win baseball games, Luis Arraez is a decent bet that might not help you in that area, but be fun as well, and also have some upside, right? He's been good before. But Paul, here's the thing. FanGraphs actually assigns player value in terms of like the skills and performance of a player just based on historical context, what guys like this usually do, the OPS numbers, the defensive numbers, in Arraez's cases, like some deficiencies, right? And they assign like the amount of value and whatnot. Arraez was valued at $26.9 million in 2023, which is his best season, right? He was a 3+ win player. He hit 345. That Marlins team made the playoffs. It was a fun player and very unique, right? For 2025, the valuation right now sits at $3.6 million. Right. So basically, he's going to absolutely be a player that a team like the Rockies may go for, because I think a lot of major league teams are going to look at Arraez and, well, yes, he's got the batting average. He also doesn't walk and he doesn't strike out. So that makes it easier for pitchers to go after him and say, oh, it's 1-2. Cool. I can just throw you garbage and you're probably going to swing at it, which I've been trying to talk about on my show. But he does have that upside of maybe it's a Petco Park thing. Padres have had, and this wouldn't be the first time, players offensively over these past few years that haven't done too great, right? Like they get a little bit worse with them. They haven't been as bad lately, right? They hit on Profar last year. They hit on Donovan Solano and Kyle Higashioka. They hit on Laureano and Ryan O'Hearn this year. But in general, they haven't always gotten the best out of guys that come to the Padres. So Arraez doesn't make sense. Keep up the brand with Coors Field. I could see a world in which he starts hitting 330 again and maybe just sees the ball go through the hoop. And then maybe even with Coors Field as a factor, maybe he looks a little bit better there. Maybe his batting average jumps up to the point where teams are like, okay, maybe he has some value. But I think some sort of prove it deal could be in the cards for a team like the Rockies, because I think the deficiencies with the speed, with the defense, with no power whatsoever, and the fact that his OPS is lower than, most players that you would think of given his stature, I think a lot of competitive contending teams might be like, oh God, okay, I like the player that he can be, but what if getting older, what if he starts not hitting consistently the ball? What if the lack of strikeouts goes away? Then all of a sudden you have a player that does not give you value in any other category. He's the type of player that I think is a good start for a team that is obviously not going to be in contention unless they go crazy again, like they did for Chris Bryant, which it's a move that to this day I won't stop talking about. Well, unless they do that, it's absolutely in the cards, man. But
no, and I know we're just about to wrap up, but I think what would be an interesting point about Arraez there, he could create a really interesting veteran competition in spring with Thairo Estrada. It would be kind of interesting to see these two guys, because the Rockies do have some second base options that they can go to, but not necessarily on the same level here. They signed Estrada to a multi-year deal, 2-year. I think he just has one more year after this. So that could be something interesting. And I think what would be successful if he does go there is Coors Field, and it's not the home runs, it's the wide outfield and teams not really knowing how to play. Javi, the Padres are familiar enough with Coors where they don't come in. Some of these teams from the American League and these teams that don't know how Coors Field works, they're playing God knows where in the outfield. Yeah. That could be somewhere that he could really succeed, because the Rockies need someone that can put the ball in play consistently, as they're a team that strikes out a ton.
Absolutely, man. We will see. We will see. And if it happens, I will be on your show, or at least just sending you all the purple hearts possible. And remember, everybody, go send Paul all the love. Go check out his show, Locked On Rockies. Go check him out next week as well for his reaction to the series, depending on how it plays out, as well as mine. Leave questions in the YouTube comments. I'm currently taking a social media hibernation break, so check out YouTube, Locked On Padres. Leave a comment on any of the videos. I'll be checking them over the weekend. But folks, that about does it for for the Locked On Padres podcast today. Stay safe and, of course, stay faithful, my Friar Faithful homies, and stay just Bo Nix believing. I got nothing when it comes to Rockies. You know what I mean? Just be hyped about having the best player in the world in basketball.
If the Rockies sweep the Padres, they will officially not be the worst team in baseball history. So there we go. We can be rooting.
And if that happens, the crash out on my episode on Monday will be something to behold, folks. But until that next time, we'll take care.